Thank you for tuning in to the Game Changer 00100 show. I'm your host, Game Changer, and today we are going to talk about excessive rejection and basically how it applies to black women. Now, before I get deep into the topic, I want to explain what excessive rejection is and, what leads to it. Um, Okay, so excessive rejection is basically when all women have to reject men. They can't entertain every guy that's interested in them. It simply doesn't work that way. More than one guy is interested in them, and really they only should be with one guy at a time. So there's going to be rejection involved. However, in the black community, we have what's called excessive rejection, where instead of for saying no, thank you, they might get a little loud or a little just too extra. I'm not going to say atomic rejection because you don't really see that much anymore. It could be because I'm older and, I have more mature circles. But I think it's because of the way society is starting to view black women and have, been viewing black women in a negative light for a while as, this crazy being that lacks control of her emotion, this ratchet ghetto thing. I think that they're trying to, rebrand their image so this atomic rejection thing is not happening as much. They're being a little more tempered in society. I notice, and which is a great thing. Kudos to them. But excessive rejection still exists, and I want to really go over the reason for that. But before I do that, I have to explain two concepts to you. One is the concept of quality validation, the other is the concept of quantity validation. And this applies to both men and women. So let's start with the men. Quantity validation is, just as it sounds, it is the validation that comes from knowing that a man can sleep with a lot of women. Doesn't really have to be the most beautiful woman in the world. Doesn't really have to be, a cheerleader or prom queen. Doesn't have to be any of that stuff. It just has to be a lot of them. He's valid as a man. He feels like a better person because he slept with a high quantity of women. Quality validation is you get to sleep with that one fantasy girl. It's great if a guy has both, but in fact, the guy feels absent if he doesn't have both. If he doesn't have high quality and high quantity of women who are, and if he's monogamous, who are at least interested in him. So that's quantity. That's quantity and quality validation as it applies to men. As it applies to women, quantity validation means that a lot of guys are interested in her. A lot of guys are asking for a number, trying to take her out, and hopefully are interested in a relationship with her. But to a greater extent, the level of interest that they have in her. Um, so well, that's more of the quality. So the quantity is just the number of guys that are interested in her, and really, most women have quantity validation. Um, that just comes with the territory of being able to provide sexual gratification to men. You're going to have quantity validation. What many women, particularly black women, don't have is quality validation. Quality validation is the extent that a man would go to be with you, and the quality of man that is interested in you. Now, how do you determine the quality of man? Well, by his standards. You see, if a man has high standards, meaning that he will only be with a select group of women, then his interest in you means that you are amongst that select group of women. That is a quality. He doesn't even have to be a quality man. That is a quality validation. You are with a man that only accepts the top now, and he's interested in you. That combined with having him at a high level of interest in you is what would make that a quality validation. Aisha and Steph Curry would be an example of this. So Aisha Curry has a quality validation, definitely, because he is a Steph Curry is a man who doesn't just date anyone. You know, I don't think at any point in his life he did, and he has a very high interest in this particular woman, and he obviously has options, so that is definitely a quality validation. She has that. She mentioned recently that she, I'm paraphrasing, but that she wishes that she had a quantity validation. Now, why am I bringing this up? Black women, by and large, do not have quality validation. They don't. And it's unfortunate. But for the rank and file black woman, the men that approach them approaches anybody. And I mean anybody. And I mean anybody. There is nothing that sets them aside. Even if you are an attractive black woman, the guys, for the most part, particularly the black guys, that approach you will pretty much sleep with anything. They just slept with a 2 or 3, the night before or the week before. That is how the sexual market is for them. They don't get that quality validation, and the guys aren't really valuing them that high. They're not they're like, oh, they're like, I'll take it or leave it. They're not trying to put the ring on it. They're not trying to go the extra mile for them. So they're not getting the quality validation that they so seek, and this is throughout the culture of black women, throughout the diaspora. For the most part, they're not getting the quality validation that they seek, and that's why a lot of them are really trying to get the attention of white guys, because white guys are a lot more selective of their mates. So they feel that if they can get them, then they get that quality validation that they so seek, even if it's not the most desirable white guy. I noticed that, and I noticed why. So black women, I see you. I understand. It sucks. All right. So excessive rejection. What does that mean? Well, for a lot of black women, damn, this is going to hurt to say. I'm really wondering if I should say this. Excessive rejection is a way for women, in this case black women, to turn quantity validation into quality validation. It's kind of like a trick of the brain, if you will, a sleight of hand, or whatever you want to call it. So they have these guys that approach them, from time to time. Now, if they entertain, like I said, they can't entertain them all, and if they do and they get pumped and dumped, then they go back. They lose the quality of validation, because basically all they wanted was the fuck. However, if they turn them down, then they can tell themselves that, yep, all these guys want is, to get on one knee and marry me, and, they all want this, happily ever after for me, this quality dime piece, and blah, blah, blah. You could tell them that only if you don't mess with them, because then you find out what they're really after, and that is a then they validate that they're part of the quantity validation, not the quality validation. Sad to say. So that's why a lot of rejection happened in the first place. But they're tricking their brain. They're tricking their brain into saying that this quantity validation is a quality validation, and that it happens often, so often that I have to be excessive. I have to be extra in my rejection. I just have to be, because It's just too much. So I'm getting bombarded with so much. I just must do this because, I am of such high quality that this happens to me all the time, and I am this. It's a way of tricking the brain into saying, I get so much quality attention that I have to be excessive in my rejection. Now, really, there's no justification for it, because even if you were bombarded, it still would have the same result. Um, but basically, what you want to do, what you're telling yourself, is that his interest is higher than it is. His interest is so high that a standard rejection won't do. You must be excessive with the rejection because his interest is so high. Like, he just can't keep his hands off you. And if you're not so aggressive, he'll just grab you because he just needs you so bad. So that's what that is all about. It's you know it's a way of tricking the brain into feeding the ego of the person that is doing the rejection. Now, what's happening as a result is people, they're losing the quantity. It's not much, but they are losing the quantity. A lot of guys are looking at them as not worth it if other options are out there. Um, who wants the excessive rejection, right? Um, Now, don't get me wrong. There's still going to be guys that don't really care. They just walk around, asking 1,000 guys or 1,000 girls to sleep with them, and then if two do, they just think about the two. And really, those guys are low quality, so they're losing quality and quantity as a result, and it really sucks for them. It really sucks from them, and it all starts with black men not having any standards. But I'm gonna really hit that point hard because I've been hit hard with it this past week. So I think that that's something that I definitely have to drill in, kind of dig in deep on black men and standards. But until then, I just want to say that that is the reason why black women are excessively rejecting um, men, particularly black men, and furthermore, it's a spiral. Right now, they're kind of spiraling. They're doing it because they need quantity, no, quality validation, and because they're doing it, they're getting less quality validation, so they have to keep doing it, and then they get less. I have to do it because they need more quality validation. So then it just keeps going back and forth, and it's like, oh man, this is awful. This is freaking awful. So that's where we're at right now. Um, and yeah, I'm going to call game over. This is Game Changer 00100. Game over.